This is the 2016 IZIP E3 Sumo. It's largely unchanged since 2015, and that's not a terrible thing. The price has actually gone down about 500 bucks. We've got through axles, 12 millimeters in the rear, 190 width, and 15 millimeter through axle in the front. Both quick release, although the quick release is on the right side of the bike up front and the left back here. We do have a kickstand mount. I don't think it comes with a kickstand, but this is 17 millimeter or 14 millimeter mount. I love the stand that it's on this demo bike here. I'm not sure what it is, unfortunately. I think it's just an OEM thing that they've been using. This is a pretty sweet bike. It's $3,099, so it's not the cheapest electric fat bike on the block, but it's also not the most expensive. There are definitely bikes out that are like $5,000, $6,000. It does not have a suspension fork, but it is a tapered head tube, so you could put a RockShox Bluto on to add some comfort. I took the PSI way down. It says 5 to 30 PSI, and I'm probably at like 10. Definitely add some cushion. You know, it smooths out the ride a little bit. These are 26 inch by 4 inch, so 4 inches is the width. Kenda Juggernaut, pretty good tire, very knobby, so you do hear it when you're riding on paved paths, which I was on my way to get here. It handles more like a motorcycle. Actually, I got my M license recently, and when you're like leaning into a turn, you almost have to push out because the tire just kind of wants to, you know, it's heavier. The bike actually isn't super heavy. It's about 54 pounds. It comes in two sizes. I'm looking at the 17-inch frame here, medium. They also have a 19-inch. So, you know, that's decent. Pretty steep top tube there. Brings the top tube height and standover a little bit lower. 31 millimeter seat post diameter. So if you wanted to, you could add a suspension post for maybe like a thud bust or long travel, 150 bucks, and that would be a lot cheaper than adding a Bluto. Those are several $100s. So just things to think about, I guess. I love that the rims are punched out. You can see the liner. They didn't do anything fun with those colors in there. It's just black, but still cool. Takes some of the weight out. The frame is another area where it changed slightly. They might have reinforced it a little bit more. It's mostly the same. I love the slap guard right here and the bosses for adding a rear rack. You'd have to get a special sort of fat bike specific rear rack, and I've linked to one of those in the full review. The paint is kind of the same. It's like this dark silvery metallic color. I think they call it carbon, and then these neon green accents, and used to say like Sumo right here, now it says IZIP. So it's very similar. It's a pretty cool looking bike all around. Battery pack locks to the frame, and that key does not have to be left in. You can charge it on or off the frame. Pretty easy to take it off. Let's go ahead and do that. So we twist this and then just pull up on that battery pack. There we go. This battery weighs almost exactly 6 pounds. It's 48 volt, 8.7 amp hour. So pretty just solid in terms of capacity. If you had a rear rack, you could potentially bring another one along with you if you're going on a big adventure. It doesn't feel super light like in your hand, but you know, 6 pounds, it's not too bad. And that weight is kept pretty low and centered on the frame. Just gonna make sure that click down. You don't want that to fall off accidentally. Motor, mid-drive, custom frame here. So a lot of the wires are run through the tubing. Looks really clean and beautiful. Down to the motor. So again, centered, it's low. Pretty well. You know, it's not a super big motor. There's no like extra plastic scuff guards or anything like you see on high bikes, but you know, it's decent and feels pretty solid. This is the M07 motor from Transex, so it's like their high torque motor. 350 watts nominal, 400 peak, with 73 newton meters of torque. So it's very torquey. It's also really quiet and one of the slower, I feel like high power, slower rotation. So you'll notice a pretty standard looking chain ring up at the front. I think that's 38 tooth. 11 by 36 back here, Shimano SLX, which is one level above Dior. Definitely like solid mid-level components there. Trigger shifters up front. The reason it's nice to have a better derailleur, and I think this is like a tougher rust-proof chain. There's no shift sensing on this motor, so, and it actually uses cadence a little bit more than torque that I've noticed on like the Yamaha system or the Bosch system. So it's cool because you don't have to actually push very hard and wear yourself out moving this thing, because there's a lot of drag and friction with these larger tires, especially if you've deflated them a little like I have for softer surfaces or just comfort. But I guess that means that when you're starting, it's just like you pedal at least a couple rotations and then you hear, and it's kind of spinning up and then it's like, and it goes. And when you shift gears, it's almost like driving with someone who's a new driver who's in a manual transmission, and they're like, and you feel the car lurching forward very noticeably when you're shifting into higher gears. So to get to the highest speed, which is the top speed 20 mile per hour, this is a class 1 electric bike, you do have to be in the higher gear. If you're in a lower gear, remember this has limited speed, so it's just not, you're not gonna be able to hit those higher speeds. So it's just not as responsive, no shift sensing, but it is powerful, it's very capable, and that's awesome for a fat bike. Just because I feel like it's the way I like to ride, just kind of chilling out. You pedal a little bit, the bike takes you, you use those gears thoughtfully, so you don't mash them too much and wear out your drivetrain. But it works pretty well. Shimano M396 hydraulic disc brakes, no motor inhibitors on these. So coming back to just that motor being a little slow to start and stop, I feel like this is best suited for, fire roads and just like wider trails and stuff. This isn't quite as performance and responsive as some of the other bikes. So keep that in mind. 180 millimeter front and rear, so decent stopping power for sure. That's good stuff. The brakes and the levers are easy to use. They respond well. Grips with lockers, and the pedals, Welgo aluminum alloy, stiff, not super big. I feel like these are narrower than a lot of the ones I see. Like they're partially cut off, and I'm not sure why, if that just makes it easier to get through like doorways, or if they were cheaper or lighter or what, but these say M195 for these pedals right here. So cool. No fender mounts. Well, maybe a couple holes here. I don't know if those are just, I don't know if they're threaded or not, but there's nothing up here on the fork, despite what it said on the website. No bottle cage, because there really isn't room, especially on the medium-sized frame. But again, you got the rack, and maybe you bring along a Camelback or a little hydro pack of some sort. Pretty active, firm saddle. So yeah, I think that's a good overview. It's a neat bike. I've had fun riding on it, and this is what the charger looks like, just kind of rounding everything out. 2 amps. This only weighs like 1.7, 1.8 pounds. Easy to take along with you, and it's got a metal cap on the end, so if you step on it or drop it, it shouldn't crack, which is really nice. I'm just gonna hop on this thing and pedal a little bit after I show you how it gets going. So we're all charged up. First, you have to press that rubber button right there on the battery. So that's the first step. A couple times I've just tried to activate the bike using the button pad, and it like wouldn't start, and I was like, oh yeah, got to turn on the battery first. So battery's on. We hold the power button over here for a few seconds, and there we go. We get to like an 8-second countdown, so it's just, I don't know, booting up, I guess. We see our speed here in miles per hour. You can change that by holding this box button for a few seconds to kilometers per hour. 5 bars indicating our battery capacity. We're pretty full right now. And then our pedal assist level. There are 4 levels, and you can arrow between them using the minus and the plus over here. And there's kind of like a secret 0 mode, which could be useful if you're running low on your battery and you don't want the pedal assist to accidentally kick in. And maybe you've wired in some lights. I think this actually comes pre-wired with 6 volts. So maybe your shop can work with you to tap into that main battery. And that's cool, because then you don't have to charge the batteries on your lights separately or worry about them coming out. I'm not sure if it's connected in the back. You might have to wire that up separately, but that's a neat feature. One of the complaints I have about this display, besides being non-removable, there's no USB ports or anything fancy like that. It does swivel to reduce glare, but it turns on backlighting like automatically. See that? It's a light sensor, and there's no way to turn it off. And sometimes it's kind of bright, and when I'm riding, it'd be nice to just like, hey, I don't want the light right now. So that's something that crossed my mind. Now that we're inside, I can give you a shot of that black backlighting. So, when I cover up the sensor, pretty bright. It makes it a lot easier to see. One of the other things you can do if you want to force it to stay on is hold that plus button for a couple seconds, and that would also operate any lights that you wire into the system. Anyway, to get down from 1 to 0, you just hold the power button over here for a couple seconds. And there we go, 0. And that's also confusing, because you're like, hey, I want to turn the bike off. Why didn't it turn off? And it's like, oh, you're in 0 mode. So anyway, then you could hold it longer and it would turn off or go back down to this power button here. Okay, cool. So there are other menus. You don't have to just look at your speed here. You can also press that box button and go over to odometer, trip distance, and range. And range is cool. It's calculated dynamically based on the level of assist we're in. So right now we're in level 1, the lowest level, and how much battery you have. So, you know, they say like 15 to 35 miles, or actually 16 to 35 miles on the website. I estimate like 15 to 30. And again, it's just the friction and the larger tires and stuff. They kind of say the same thing for all the bikes. I'm trying to be a little bit more specific here. And this is just my estimate. I'm not actually riding 30 miles today. Unfortunately, I don't have time for that. So if we arrow up to a higher level of assist, we can see this dynamically change down to 29 miles, 25 miles, and 17. So assist level 4 is like the highest, and it's really gonna take you. I think they're similarly capable. I've actually prefer to ride in level 1, and I haven't had any problem climbing or anything. 4 is just like a lot more zippy. Okay, and then the other thing about this, we were talking about it being a class 1 electric bike earlier. You can sort of upgrade it to class 2 by adding this little boost button right here. That's what they call it. Okay, so that plastic ring with these 3 buttons, that's separate. It's $50. You can have it installed by your local electric bike dealer that sells IZIP stuff. And it's kind of neat. You press the power button first, and when you do, you see this S, which maybe that means speed. It doesn't really go along with the whole boost button. I feel like it should be a B, but whatever. And then you hold down 6 for almost like a walk mode, like pretty gentle. It does start to go faster with a little bit of time, but it starts pretty gentle. Maybe you're navigating through crowds and you want to focus on the crowd and stuff and not be pedaling, or going through like a mud puddle or something like that. So you got 6. And then you've got like full power. That's the blank button. And you'd hold that. It'll take you all the way up to 20 miles per hour. Again, if you're in a high gear. If you're in a low gear, it's just going to go as fast as it can until the motor RPM maxes out. So that's cool. Kind of a neat accessory. But again, it changes it from class 1 to class 2. And that might change where this bike is like allowed to ride. So let's do it. Hop on this thing. I'm gonna straight up boost mode. Just hold that for a second. Whoa. Yeah, we're like maxing out around maybe 10 miles per hour just because of the gear I'm in, and then a bit of a lower gear. This time I'm gonna do pedal assist. You can see how long it takes to start and how responsive it is to stop. Just a little bit slow and laggy in level 1. Let's do level 4 this time, get a little bit more response. And it's pretty quiet. You probably can't hear it over all the sound of the big tires on this gravel. But it's just kind of like a soft wee, wee. It's actually one of my favorite sounding mid-drive motors out there. But again, it's just not super responsive. It kind of like lurches forward. And you get it. You can kind of learn to time this thing with a bit of practice, but it's just, yeah. Coming back to the type of trails where you'd want to use this. Maybe not the super high precision, edge of the cliff type of situation. Probably hear the motor cut out a couple times there. That's because we hit our 20 mile per hour top speed. It's not difficult to do if you're in the right gear. The other thing about this is there's no brake lever inhibitor, so when you try to brake, even if you're just pedaling a little bit, you can set that motor off, and then you're kind of competing with the motor, and it is powerful. So back to maybe not being quite as precision oriented as some of the other models. So that's the 2016 IZIP E3 Sumo fat tire electric bike. Love the through axles. It's going to make it a lot easier to take the wheels on and off, gives you some stiffness. Lining up those disc brakes is going to be easier. It's a nice little upgrade, but it's mostly the same, so it's nice that it's dropped in price a little bit. For the full write-up on this and some of the other IZIP electric bikes, I'll see you back at ElectricBikeReview.com. Ride safe.